Yes, that's right. We are here again. Another episode of Deep Space Nine at Nine-ish, Season 3, Episode 13. Life support is over, but we are just getting started here on Live Long and Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Mader. We are coming at you with another kind of a slow episode, but we'll jump right into it once and break it all down once we get all our guests in. For now, I think all we have is my brother Dave Mader, so we'll bring him on in.
Oh,
Dave,
I'm
how
not
are you?
all we have. We got so much more to come.
Do we? Oh, what do you mean by that? Or is that a tease?
Not a tease. I just mean, hey, Jameel's here too.
Okay.
Where is he?
Oh, there he is. There he is. And last but not least, prayer bow. Jaemeel Robinson, how are you? Ready to talk about Nog and Jake's cultural differences? Are you ready?
Hashtag Team Pfizer. Yes.
Okay, so this episode's kind of like it's kind of a three-pronged episode, I guess. You know, it's mainly two stories, but I think one of the stories is coming from two different angles. The episode starts with a transport arriving to the station, and actually it starts with Jake and Leanne, but we'll get into the Jake and Nog. Let's get into the Vedic Bareil stuff first. It starts with this transport arriving, and there's some radiation, so they couldn't beam these people out of the ship that's been damaged. So they have to go directly to the airlock with Bashir and Odo, and they're running around, and Odo's finally doing something security-wise, which is exciting. And we find out that Vedic Bareil is been injured, and Bashir lets Kira know that immediately once he finds that out. So, and he's kind of like in a coma right off the bat. So, Dave, what do you make of this, kind of premise of an episode that Bashir is going to bring this guy kind of back to life, and kind of like a Frankenstein kind of an episode?
Yeah, there's a lot to break down in this episode. I think there's these two storylines that don't work very well together in this episode. They're like separately, they're fine, and they're completely not connected. Other than they're happening at the exact same time, I guess. And so
yeah,
Jake and Nog don't care what's going on with Vedic Bareil.
No.
Even though they were having a weird romp a few weeks ago, they were all, well, not Nog, but Jake was certainly involved in the crazy love triangle when Xanthi fever was spread amok around here.
When we had Steve Shives on the show to break it all down.
We were talking about the Xanthi fever. So I think if we're just talking about the Bareil storyline, when I watched this back in 1995, I thought it was a story that was all about sort of the ethics of patients' rights and sort of like ethics. And when does one stop being a man, and sort of these more like philosophical or medical ethical quandaries. However, upon rewatching this, it's really about making Kai Wynn evil, or establishing her villainous, or cementing it, maybe more so, because Vedic Bareil only really existed to be a foil for Kai Wynn, or originally Vedic Wynn, right? And then ultimately she prevailed, and then used him, drove him into the ground, and showed how her disregard for life is and her pursuit and ambition are above all other things for her, right? So just build, I'll remember what you said here, Doctor, so will I.
You're a coward.
You're a coward. And she was like, I will not forget what you said here.
Neither will I. No, for sure. And that's kind of like the three-pronged part of this episode, is you have like the peace treaty talks going on between Cardassia and Bajor, and you also have the Vedic being on life support. That's the title of the episode, and so you have that part of with the Kira emotional part, but then we also again the third prong is the Nog and Jake stuff. So let's kind of break that down quick here with Jaemeel. First,
how lucky for you.
Oh, so lucky.
It's your. I thought you would be very excited for Leanne says, hey, what are you doing later? And he's like, I gotta play Domjot with Nog, but not really firm plans. I mean, I will throw those plans out the window because you're cute and I like you. Jaemeel, what do you think about this setup with Leanne?
So goofy. And his height makes this sequence seem very awkward. Like he's talking to a child.
Yes.
I'm like, hello, little one. What did you want to talk to me about?
Hello down there. How are you?
All I was thinking of is like, why is Lisa Turtle on friggin' Deep Space Nine? And that's all I was thinking.
I didn't even realize that's Lisa Turtle. Yeah, from Saved by the Bell. I didn't even realize that's who it was. Yeah, but totally is.
Wait, no, not Everlost. What's her name?
Alik Voorhees.
Yeah, Voorhees. Yeah.
Yes,
and this is probably only a couple years after she was done with Saved by the Bell, I would imagine.
Well,
yeah, she would have been.
She came back to it. So she was
21 here.
Yeah. She took after Saved by the Bell ended, she was gone, right? And then she came back for the later part of Saved by the Bell, the new class, the college years. Sorry,
right.
She came back for later episodes.
So they agreed they're gonna go to the Klingon restaurant, but they're gonna skip the Gok. They don't need the Gok.
Skip that course. You go straight to the blood toke pie or whatever the blood pie, I think they make, or lemon pie. Lark Voorhees also voiced the Borg Queen in an episode of Robot Chicken.
Well, there you go.
Maybe
I mean, so
like Star Trek.
Maybe she'll be on Lower Decks as well. I could see that.
Maybe we should invite her on the podcast to see if she wants to.
Hey,
no,
no, not good.
He had some problems. I've heard.
Did Lisa Turtle have some problems?
Okay, we won't extend it. We won't extend an invite, Jaemeel. We're even us off. All right. It was a dream of mine.
I don't think all the Save the Bell people got out clean.
No, well, one of them's recently deceased in Dustin.
Yeah. Yes. Well, that's true. Yeah. Okay, so and then right away after the credits, we start off with Bashir trying to save Vedic Baral's life. They're wearing the red suits. Dave, do you like the red medical suits here?
I love these little red cap surgical things that they wear. They don't make much sense to me because I'm like, okay, but why isn't your mouth covered? Or like, it's like I'm covered completely to make it sterile, I guess, but my mouth and my face are completely exposed. So
and it's also like a wool knit. It's like a wool knit. It's not like a good material, I would imagine.
Right. Why is the flatness at the top required? Is there a medical requirement or is that a fashion choice?
I think that's just to make sure no hair.
No hair. The hair's like
Yeah, it's a hair thing.
So we just did the Star Trek Next Generation episode Samaritan Snare on Star Trek Radio Theater, and Pulaski and her team the team that were saving Picard were all wearing these.
Yeah, but I feel like theirs weren't like a wool knit material. I thought
it was a little bit sleeker. It was the same, effective look, but these have more texture to them. We also saw Dr. Crusher wear these, and like different, next gens would use this kind of team look for.
But they never used the red surgical look in original series, from what I can remember. Right?
It was rare that we ever saw McCoy in full
medical regalia.
Yeah. He would always be like, I'm done the surgery, and I changed into my short sleeve.
You're right. Okay, so then the next scene after that, we get Cisco with Kai Wynn in his office, and we my favorite line of this whole conversation is Cisco, like they start kind of talking about negotiating peace. Kai Wynn throws out some sort of line like, you can only make a friend if you actually talk about peace, but the more you have violence, the more that person is your enemy. So child, very condescending, always talking down. And then Cisco,
Emissary.
Except for Emissary. He's never child. Everyone else is child.
Emissary.
Everyone
I
else
need
is
to
child.
speak to the emissary immediately in private.
Yeah. And my favorite line is Cisco. What he says is, don't take this the wrong way, but I did not expect you to be leading peace talks with the Cardassians.
But I never would have guessed that you'd be the one to bring such a bold vision of peace to Bajor.
Yeah, that's his direct quote.
Ouch.
And like she doesn't even seem hurt by Cisco saying this to her. It doesn't.
It bounces off her like nothing. She's like,
Bounces
actually, a
off
large credit goes to. She says Bareilles actually the one who deserves the credit.
Yeah.
I'm only saying this because no one else is around, by the way.
Yeah.
Because she's a boss who likes to take the credit. She'll let the underlings know they're appreciated in private. Like, hey, Bareil, you're gonna win Employee of the Year.
Kywin's got a bit of Donald Trump in her, I've got a bit of that in her,
She's got that psychopath, ruthless boss, the devil wears Prada, if you will.
Yeah, and just super ego, and in private we'll say one thing, and in public we'll kind of act in a different facade. It seems like So what do we get after? That's kind of basically the crux of that conversation. And then so after that, we kind of get the Julian, classic hospital show moment where Julian comes, the radiation severely damaged his neural pathways. I did everything I could. And you get the close up with Kira, and she's like, I know you did.
I know you did.
I know you did. And he's like, all right, I guess.
She's like, I gotta get to work. She's like, they can deal without you. She's like, I know you're just trying to be concerned, but I need to work through this in my own time. See you later. And he's like, okay.
He's like, you know what? I'm not gonna fight you because you're Bajoran and you have spiritual thing. I think you guys do that kind of like on your own time.
You're a friend of mine. They're friends at this point, right?
Yeah, but he's already in an episode before told her not to work. When she's been emotional or she hadn't had any fun in a while, and she was kind of,
he's got an autopsy to get to, Jeff. So
that's the thing. That's what I think it was. It was like, I'm not going to fight you. I got an autopsy to get to. So you do you, but I'm letting you know, if you don't want to go back to work, I will write you a note.
He's like,
yeah, I will follow up with you after the autopsy. Let's get to work.
Okay, so then we get to the autopsy, dropping the stasis field, which just turns it from a green light to a white light.
Right. I thought that was maybe to sell to us that he wasn't dead. He was dead, but he was in the stasis field. Like, I think they keep how does he come back to life here?
They should have put him in a tube or something. I think, but it would have made more sense.
They used the stasis light previously, and they're like, okay, remove stasis. We're gonna start the procedure. So it's their pause button.
Well, I think then Voyager figured this out. They're like, we'll put something over their chest, and that will make more sense for this.
Like with Neelix?
With Neelix. Which is very similar episode to this episode. And also the episode with Worf in TNG. I think you could do a triple watch. I don't suggest it.
You want the one where he's got to get the spinal surgery and yeah, I think there's some interesting connections to those episodes. It's basically these these characters who are close to death and what their medical rights are, their ethical rights around their life. And
yeah, and one's Bajoran, one is a Klingon, and one is a Talaxian. So none of them are human.
Yeah,
which is interesting because they all have different customs and cultures about how they view death, and what they value. But so
it would have been so much awesomer if they followed the medical show type of procedures and had the show in that style for that episode. Something like Community would have done.
Yeah,
if it's going to be a medical procedural, let's lean into it. We have a James Bond episode. Let's have our medical procedure episode.
I think they kind of do. I do think this episode is somewhat based kind of on ER. the episode starts with running up to the gates of the hospital. You got to open the airlock, got to get the patients. Then they there's a surgery. We're trying to save the guy's life. The guy dies, and then we get to the crux of the episode where his brain is still working while he's dead. So they're like, hey, what's going on here? Like, this doesn't make any sense.
We can replace his heart. Why not replace his brain?
Yeah, but
yeah,
we don't have stretchers in Deep Space Nine. Like, they literally have two dudes carry him out with his neck like this. I'm like, come on, like, we couldn't get anything.
Yeah, that was a bad look. And he has a severe burn on his chest there that they don't really show later on in the episode.
They got that spit spot.
They buffed that out, no problem here in the 24th century, Jeff. They just run the dermal regenerator over that, and it's all good.
That was the least of his problems.
Yeah, I know. The radiation poisoning was more the issue.
Right. So then he kind of like...
And you forgot, it was also the radiation he had to put into his body to bring him back to life.
Yes,
like,
they were right.
There's an ethical question here of whether or not he should have even brought him back. Yes. The way he did here, right? Because I guess it seems like the message of the episode the first time was okay, but eventually there was a limit to this, right? But you could even make the argument he should never have been brought back here. He was dead. And
what does Supernatural always say, Dave? Dead is dead, right? You don't bring back what's dead.
But they brought them back so many times from the dead in Supernatural.
I know, but that was the old saying.
But they were very inconsistent with its use. So.
It's not good. You're right. It wasn't. They're not the guys to be looking up to. You're right.
They say that, but they don't practice that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it's because the radiation that is making his brain's neurons fire. So they kind of ramp that up to bring him back to life in a sense, almost. He's alive, but he's kind of Frankenstein alive. He's running on a computer almost, and he's almost not really the same man that he was, because his brain isn't fully working, his body doesn't fully work. All the neurons aren't firing, I don't think, at the same rate that they were. So yeah, Jaemeel. Then we get into the next scene, very important. We get the scene with Jake and Nog, where Nog is saying like, oh, you don't want to play Domjot with me? And he goes, well, no, I have a date. He goes, oh, perfect. Woman is woman. Money is money, but women are better, he says.
Personal rule.
That was my favorite part. Yeah, it's personal rule.
It's a personal rule. I'm petitioning for it to be added to the rules of acquisition. The rules of Nog, at least for now.
Right. So he totally squeezes himself into a double date that was never supposed to be a double date.
He also strokes his own ear as he's saying it, which is kind of creepy and weird to do for your friend as you're talking about a double date. He's like,
absolutely better.
I know it's kind of like I know it's not like rubbing your dick, but it's kind of like rubbing your dick. I don't know what it is with these Ferengi. Yeah. Anyway, the double date, Jeff.
The double date. He kind of just shoehorns himself into this double date. And Jake's kind of like, what the hell? But he's like, you know what? It's better than him being mad at me, I guess. So I guess I will bring him along. Bad mistake.
Don't do a double date on your first date. That's bad. That's no, you don't.
No, yeah. That's that. That's how it ends up like Goodfellas. That was a double date, first date. And look how that ended up.
Right. And Dog's the Joe Pesci here. And
yes.
Jake is Ray Liotta. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And he just kind of it's
Lisa
actually
Turtle
the opposite.
Is Karen Hill, and
I think it's the opposite. I think Jake is the Joe Pesci and Nog is the Ray Liotta because Jake is the one that wants to be on the date, just like Joe Pesci wanted to be on the date, and he was like, just come along. I'm trying to get with this broad. Yeah. Is what he says. So yeah, I think it's the opposite, which is kind of funny too.
What did you think of Nog's date?
I thought, she was thoroughly insulted, and I'm sure she will always remember it.
She put up with it for a long time before she finally had enough.
Very long time.
Very
Yeah.
long time. You know, they don't really explain what kind of an alien is she.
I don't.
Vriska is
Vriska unknown.
uh,
Species
Unknown.
unknown. But her uncle owns a bar on Oceaner 4, so she might be Ocenarian. Oh, sorry, Oceaner 6.
Okay. Any thoughts, Jaemeel, on the double date, on the Jake and Nog of it all?
it is a pretty A to B storyline. It doesn't really reinvent the wheel at all.
No.
Like,
Don't you feel like they were
watch
really
the
trying
slow-motion
to like
train wreck just happening, and you're just like, this is a bad decision. Why are you doing this? This is a bad decision. You need to put a stop to this. And it just goes on a little bit way too long for you to feel bad for anyone really in it.
like this is like they're trying to give more not just to Nog but to Jake, right? Because Jake's been like struggling to sort of have more storylines and beats in this series, and this is like I think maybe one of their standout moments here in this episode, even though it feels completely out of place because of the gravity of like Bareil dying, who I'm not sad is gone, because like I said, he really only exists to be like sort of a this like foil to Kai Wynn and to sort of be this sticking point between Kira and Wynn going forward, and the rest, and even Bashir. But you know, I think they're like, we're gonna get Jake Sisko something. You know, they probably went to Avery Brooks, because Avery Brooks like, you need to get more for Sirach Lofton on this show, and they're like, don't worry, we're bringing in Lisa Turtle from Saved by the Bell. We got this whole double date storyline. I think that also this storyline is interesting too, because this whole idea of cultural tolerance is a big point here, right? You know,
Yes.
and like that,
Yeah.
Commander Sisko had said earlier in the series, like, hey, humans and Ferengis can never be friends. We're too different. We don't have the same values. We're diametrically opposed in so many important ways, as like treatment of women, perhaps. Right. And among other things. And he's like, I was wrong about that. You guys can still be friends and still be different. Right. And still disagree on things or have different views, and as they come to in their when they're forced into the cell together, they just disgust each other.
Well, right. And it comes down to, I think, sometimes, you know, your culture, you know, may offend somebody else, but you can still be friends with that person. And that's tough. You know, it's a tough kind of like realization to, you know, makes, like, that's kind of what Jake says to Nog. He says, you know, I forget sometimes we're different. But I have to be okay with that. You know, it's kind of, you know, which is not really how most people would have reacted in his position. I think most people would have been very upset that he completely cock-blocked him in the hardest way possible.
And it was also like, imagine your Lisa Turtle, right? Like, you know, it wasn't very nice. Like, hey, you know, Jake, I got my friend to come, right? And then like it was just awful, you know. And like, and then what did he want to do? He wanted to go to the holosuite and pillage and loot and kill people.
Yeah, that's a great line too. Like, whoever wrote that was having some fun. Ronald
D. Moore.
This female talks way too much.
Yeah, I love it. He also says no self-respecting Ferengi talks to a woman like she's a delicate flower or something like that. I forget what he says, but it's something like that.
Talking to them like they're equals.
Like they're equals. Yeah.
Yeah. What are you doing? Why are you talking to them like they're equals?
Yeah,
you're screwing this up, Jake.
You tell them what to do and you make them useful.
He goes, she's so dumb, she's perfect.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's when it's over.
That might be the most awkward moment in Star Trek history, when they all start laughing and then it stops when he says, "Oh, she's so dumb." You know, that everything just is awkward. It's just cringe. Again, they're cringing us up in these last few episodes of Deep Space Nine, where you're just kind of going, God, guys, come on.
But I don't know. I think this. I'm okay with it. All like it's not nice what they do here, but I think it's a good moment for them, right? And I think the message of it, like, how much can you tolerate of another person's culture, even if it's diametrically opposed to your values?
It's tough, but but I think what the episode's trying to say is like you shouldn't just write those people off because of that.
To give up all the stuff you have in common,
Mhm.
it would be a loss. Is kind of what Commander Sisko says to Jake here, right? Like you should talk to him before the problem becomes too big of an issue, or too big to solve.
Yeah. Okay, I'd like to.
They never had a conversation previously about their views on women and how each of them felt about it. Like
they're Domjot jockeys, man. When you're a Domjot like pro, like these two, you don't have time to talk about women. It's all about the Domjot leagues. You got to go play the Nausicaans.
But Jake was also dating this girl for a while. It's telling me Nog never said anything, even after they broke up, about how he felt about her or women in general, or how Jake was treating her, and how that was like in opposition to how he felt. So that conversation could have came up previously. It just seems like really weird that this specific situation brought these specific differences to light, when it technically should have always been there.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is kind of like, huh? You're kind of like asking yourself, like, wait, these guys don't like ever shoot the shit about girls? They're like teenagers. They're, like, how would they not?
Domjot.
Like, you're telling me you did not know that your dude was not the right dude to take on a double date? Like, come on. Like,
if anything, this is Jake's fault. He really should have just put, he should have just said, you know what, Nog, no Domjot. Look, we're taking a break. We'll play tomorrow, or whatever he had to do.
Yeah.
To I think it would have been better if he had upset him over the Domjot rather than bring him on the double date and then insult everyone involved at the table. Yeah.
Look, if like I'm friends with Van Eck, I don't necessarily think I'm gonna go double dating with him and Brantford bars. I'm just saying. That's just
right.
That's just
right.
That's just me. I think that if I did, the trouble that I would get out of it is my own fault.
And I think that's a good point, because I think that's what we have here with Jake. We have a guy that is, not self-aware enough to know that Nog is not a good wingman, and that's just a fact. We also so the next thing we get is Kai Wynn, Sisko, and some Cardassian Gull sitting down to discuss the peace negotiations. And so it's basically like, we want our Bajoran prisoners, and the Cardassians are like, okay, maybe. We want our Cardassian equipment, and she's like, okay, maybe.
Yeah, is this how diplomatic relations actually go? Like this is sometimes where I think Star Trek does poorly in terms of representing what the politics of these situations are, what the relations here are. I get that DS9 feels a bit more neutral. However, it is kind of weird here that like it's just these two and Sisko, and this is like to sign treaties for the entire between Cardassia and all of Bajor. Plus, the Federation would have major stakes in this. So in reality, it would probably be like teams of diplomats and aides and all
where's
kinds
the
of stuff.
Representative from the Obsidian Order?
Yeah, where's the Obsidian Order?
Where's their interest?
The Tapa Council, I don't see them here. So that's I'm kind of nitpicking just to say, like, I think that like other shows like Babylon 5 did a better job of speaking to these kinds of things and world building, and the politics. I know it's not 5 o'clock and it's not Babylon 5-ish, but
it's 5 o'clock somewhere, I guess.
Babylon 5.
It's been so long since we've had a Babylon 5 shout out. I don't think
right. Okay, but this whole negotiation here, like, like she's like, I don't know what to do with that Bareil. He was doing all this stuff. Like, I was off partying in Dakor province or whatever, having some Bajoran spring wine or whatever Kai Wynn does, when she's not praying and wearing.
She has access to the orbs and she's just chilling with that, having sex dreams.
She's having orb experiences. Yeah,
Yeah.
like, hey, why not? She's the Kai.
Yeah, so then we kind of get this, like, so after they kind of like, yeah, do their diplomatic negotiation, the Cardassian leaves, and then we get this scene with Cisco and Kai Wynn. And Kai Wynn's kind of going on about how, I was not meant to be in a room discussing litigations with a Cardassian. It's kind of what she's going on. And I have a screenshot, Dave, if you could just show it. She's kind of like getting emotional, and Cisco's looking at her in a way I think that is kind of like, I don't believe anything this bitch is saying.
Wow.
That's what I think. That's what I think anyway.
Yeah.
I think he's looking at her like, you're playing me right now. And I think she is. I think she is kind of trying to manipulate Cisco a little bit here.
Where is the first minister of Bajor? Why is the Pope negotiating the peace treaty with the Cardassian military? Like, it seems like it's that's why I feel like the fact that it's all come down to Kai Wynn and Vedic Bareil, and that all of the billions of people of Bajor, it's only these two people that can make this deal that the Cardassians clearly want to make anyway.
They don't do a good enough job of showing us like how the Bajoran government functions. They did it in a few earlier episodes in the 3-parter that started off season 3 a little bit, or season 2, sorry. They showed that a little bit, but going forward, yeah, it seems like it's like they're always going to the religious leader and not the political military leader on Bajor, which is strange.
Well, what's his name? Frank Langella. He's not available right now because he was like the last Bajoran politician kind of civil leader we saw. Now we know Shakar is going to be, now that Bareil's out of the way, we don't forget that Shakar will become the new love interest for Nana. I just love saying Nana. Hey, we don't want to get you're playing the video. You gotta be careful.
I didn't play it. I just moved it. Okay. What do we have next? We already talked about the double date, so we'll skip past that. Then we get the scene here with Bashir, Kira, Vedic Bareil, and Kai Wynn. And Bashir, before, I kind of skipped over a scene, but I want to talk about it at the same time. Bashir is trying to convince Vedic Bareil to go into like a stasis so they can figure out how to keep him alive, and so that, but he doesn't want to do that. These peace negotiations are too important. He's too dedicated to his faith and his people that he can, he's basically got a second shot at life, and he's going to try and do as much as he can while he's alive right now. To do these peace talks. It's too important to him. What do you guys make of all that premise, that whole premise?
Here's but the first thing I think is interesting about it is sort of the ethical question of when is the patient being reckless, in terms of like the decisions they're making. Yet you have like Kai Wynn here saying, hey, if you can give me the answers, I need you, or this peace treaty is not going to happen. And then I don't get like my nice pat on the back or whatever it is that she's motivated by. And Kira knows it's important to him. So she's trying to be supportive. But I'm just like, well, I think that Bashir has got a really good point here that he keeps wanting to take this experimental drug that's killing him, destroying his organs, which could also destroy his brain, which obviously it ends up doing. He's just like, hey, like we kept it going for as long as possible. Like earlier when he was like, I'll allow you to visit as long as it doesn't tire him, right? That went out the window. And I guess like I feel like this peace treaty would have got done without, and I don't think it had to cost Bareil's life. I just feel like for it to get done by a certain like deadline, maybe you needed Bareil. But I think it's kind of tragic what happens to him, really.
Yeah, Jaemeel?
Dave hit it right on the head. The patient in a doctor's care has only so many things he can be allowed to do and say. when he's still under the doctor's care, and the doctor has to override that for the betterment of the person. Bashir cannot keep treating him if it is doing harm. His whole oath is to do no harm, right? And he is actively harming him to prolong his ability to do a treaty that, what happens, like, if the treaty never happened, right? If the treaty fell apart, like, he goes into stasis, right?
Yeah.
If like it just seems like I'm overriding your decision because you're not in your right mind. You are focused on, it's like it's like, I have to go and turn off the stove, and just keeps getting up from the surgery table. The doctor isn't going to be like, let me shoot you with something so you can go home. No, right? They're like, for your own good, you need to have this procedure done and then be able to recover when you are clear body and mind, which this man is not. Cannot be anywhere clear to be of clear body and mind. Then he can make that decision as to if he wants to proceed with further treatment or not. But
Right. Okay. And then we get the scene where Bashir goes to visit Kai Wynn to convince Barile to go back into the stasis. And she's like, well, I can't do that. I mean, this peace treaty is way more important to me than his life. I don't care about his life. You know, it's basically kind of where she comes from. You know, in my opinion. What do you guys think about that scene?
Well, I think it's showing a very grown up side of the Bashir character, like sort of this, like, I don't care who you are or what the stakes are, even if Cisco doesn't like this. Like, I'm trying to save this guy's life. You know, he's
Yeah.
and you suck. And you need
Yep.
to help, you need to stop this. Like, it's not important enough. I don't, like, ultimately, like, we know what will come after this, right? Even if the writers didn't. We know that this peace treaty with Cardassia, this particular one, was not important because ultimately Cardassia will join the Dominion within about a year and a half of this event.
Right.
Right. So
the one that is important is the one Cisco gets done right before the war occurs. That's the important peace treaty.
Yes, the treaty with the Dominion and Bajor ends up being the important treaty. Barile didn't have to die for that one, but Cisco almost dies for that one. Right. You know, so there's, I don't know, they like to write this kind of into their stories, I guess, that peace treaties can only be done with dying people, or with the wisdom of sort of like some sort of, like, they show this a lot in Star Trek, like only Ambassador Sarek or only Ambassador Spock or somebody, or even Picard, only they are smart enough to broker this peace deal. And then they go into a room and then they say that there's some stuff said. And then they come out and say, we made the deal. Isn't Picard like the greatest diplomat ever? And you go, I guess. Like, he seemed like he figured it out. Yeah, he didn't.
Yeah.
You don't know. Yeah. So because it's hard to, I guess, write that kind of stuff, right? Or to, you know, in a convincing way. So you often have to kind of yada that, all those details. But back to the scene itself, Kai Wynn, I think, is like, I don't want him to die, but if he dies, he dies. If he dies, he dies. I'm Ivan Drago.
If he dies, he dies. It's less Bajoran storylines with Kira, so, you know, boohoo. And then Shakar comes around, so that all changes. But yeah, speaking of love lives, let's get to the scene with Jake kind of crying to his dad about how much Nog sucked on the double date. And yeah, so we kind of already talked about it before, but Cisco kind of says, you know, I was wrong about, like, where, you know, Jake brings up the sentence, or the thing he said before, a Ferengi and a human can never really be friends. And he says, oh, I was wrong about that. Like, you guys proved that. And they're right in this, like, Cisco sees that they're right at this point where their friendship could end over this. And he's like, trying to remind him, like, is that really what you want? Like, or would you rather fix it? And I think Jake kind of, like, takes that to heart, and he orchestrates this plan to get Odo to arrest him and then get Nog thrown in the brig along with him, which I think, you know, is a smart little play by Jake. What do you guys think of that whole kind of lead up and that setup?
Well, like, it's kind of hilarious, like, what Odo agrees to do here. Like,
Yes.
right?
He's like, what? He's like, what? What do you need? Good. All right, I'm on board.
But it's completely believable. Like, I couldn't see Worf doing this, but I can totally see Odo doing this. Like, he
Or
literally
Tuvok.
Tuvok definitely not. I don't
No.
think so. Right? Like, Tuvok's all about due process. This was Odo is more about like, it's martial law, baby, and I'm the law. It's Judge Dredd style with Odo, and he's like, if I want to arrest you without cause, I will. I would love a chance to just throw him into a holding cell for a couple hours. I think Odo was all like there wasn't much convincing needed here.
He's like, what? You want me to throw Quark's nephew into the brig? Done.
Done. I just to see if Quark will show up, and then I can banter with Quark in my office instead of at the bar. I love it. Let's do it.
I think that's.
I've selectively put comm badges on each of their persons, so at a moment's notice, I can transport them directly into one of our holding bays. You just say the word. I could do it right now.
Yeah, like the plan was. I guess it's kind of funny when they figure out they're locked in there together, but yeah, it's fine.
So
both actors were really good in the scene. I will say that too. I think the writing's good too. It just doesn't. It emotionally, it just feels like an interruption in this other heavier story.
Yeah, the heavier story that's going on with Bashir, trying to decide whether or not he has to convince other people, it seems like, whether or not he's allowed to save Vedic Bareil's life the way he wants to do it. That's kind of like what's going on here, it seems like. And we get in the room here with Kira, Cisco, and Kai Wynn, and he's like having to plead his case for the rule, like the authority that he should already have as a doctor, which I find strange.
I went to medical school. I don't know if you guys know, but I went to medical school. The rest of you didn't.
How did was he valedictorian?
Second. Well, he's second in his class, but he got that question wrong on purpose, right?
So on purpose, so he wouldn't give away that he was genetically altered.
Yeah, so he could continue his career of playing tennis, and
drinking and throwing darts and all that jazz. Okay. Yeah, so then we get the scene here with I don't even know where we are.
That scene up in Cisco's office is all about the debate of whether to replace his brain with machines, right? And the ethics of it. And he's like, yeah, I can do it. And Kira's like, I think he'd want you to do it, so you should do it. He's like, I don't know. Like, this is like the first step. He's like, I don't know how much of it will really be Bareil anymore. Like, in this whole, like, this is an age, as we know, where like there are some cybernetic implants to varying degrees in humanity. There are some varying degrees of cybernetically enhanced people, like Arium in Star Trek Discovery, Detmer also in Star Trek Discovery. So, and then got the Borg and these other species that are known to use implants.
Bashir says to Kai Wynn here, like, you are hardly an impartial party to be discussing Vedic Bareil's life here. And then she says the line which to me makes her a villain and proves to me that she doesn't care about individual lives, is there is more at stake here than one man's life. And she's arguing with a doctor whose job it is to save that one man's life.
Yes. Yes.
So I don't think what's at stake here is that important.
I agree, because Cardassia will rip that treaty up so fast if they ever really wanted to,
and they do. Basically, like they kind of
some
people
their back, do,
right? That's like, I think the only reason that Cardassia signed a peace treaty with Bajor now was because of the Dominion threat, and playing nice with Bajor was in their best interest to do so. So, like, whether or not this is some kind of grand thing, like the Cardassians only do things they want to do. They're not going to we're looking to move beyond this and be better Cardassians now. No, you're not. You're looking to join the Dominion and wage war and try to take back your rightful place in the galaxy. That's what you're going to do in about 18 months from now. maybe they're not thinking that yet. I don't know, but that's what they will do.
Maybe. But I think the point is, it'd be like if like I guess like a politician was like, yeah, like in a coma, and and like, yeah, like the doctor's like, I am trying to save his life, but they're like, no, you need to keep him awake because we have a peace deal with another country that we done. It's just ridiculous to me that a doctor would allow that, and that's kind of the crux of this episode for me, is that everybody else is involved with Bashir when I don't think that should really be the case.
Well, if this was another doctor, another Starfleet doctor like McCoy or Beverly Crusher or the EMH from Voyager or Phlox, any of them, like I think they would have done better here than Bashir does in terms of trying to argue his authority.
I'm going to argue with you on that one. I think the problem here is Sisko. Sisko is not stepping in. Well, because it's Bajor, that's his weakness. This is the one, like, these are the one episodes that Sisko kind of shows that he's vulnerable to the Bajorans and what they want, and he kind of bends over for them almost no matter what.
He doesn't disagree with Kai Wynn once in this episode. Like we see this a little bit of animosity, not even that much really, with Kira and Kai Wynn. Sisko is almost complicit in this, almost as complicit as Kai Wynn is. Why isn't Bashir going to Sisko? Help me convince Kai Wynn to come with me.
Yeah.
But Bashir does say at one point in this episode, I can't go talk to Sisko. He's not going to listen to me. So he already knew that Sisko is this way.
Right.
So I can't really blame him. Who's he going to go talk to? Kira. Can't go talk to Kira. Way too emotionally involved in this situation. Where is Dax in this episode, by the way? There is no Dax.
Dax is only in there in the beginning when Kai Wynn's like, I won't talk about this in front of you.
Yeah.
And then Sisko's like, get lost. You're ruining things with Kai Wynn, Dax. She hates your guts. Get out of here. Take the rest of the day off. And then Odo's too busy putting Nog and Jake in the holding cell and participating in those things to get involved.
Yeah.
And Quark's not involved.
Yep.
We do have Quark with making a chocolate souffle cake in honor of Kai Wynn at this party that ends up happening right
tongue
after.
Sauce.
It's some sort of a tongue sauce, yeah. And so Dax, so sorry, this is the scene with Dax where Dax walks over to Bashir and says, hey, remind me never to invite you to a party. You look like the most depressed person in the history of parties, basically, is what she says to him. And he goes, sorry, I am trying to keep a guy who's dead alive, and people won't let me keep him alive. So that's kind of a mess.
I can't imagine what I've done deserves a celebration. And then she's like, well, you kept him alive against incredible odds. So maybe you should be proud of that.
Yeah. He's like, you basically brought a guy back to life, like that's not something that happens every day. And he goes, yeah, but didn't take it over the finish line.
Right.
It's kind of,
But remember, like the old Bashir who used to say things like, where is it? Never find it when you. Now it's like, no, it's been so much time. I've ruined it. Here it's like,
yeah.
I just seem to have a talent, I suppose. I impressed myself on that one, actually.
Yes, he was more cocky. Now he's more. Yes, you're right, Dave. He's more self-reflective. I think that is definitely on purpose. They're definitely also making him more serious. There's no light, fun moment for Bashir in this episode.
What a laugh!
What a laugh!
There is no laughs in this episode.
No laughing
coming from Bashir. This is a very serious matter. Anyway. So I do think on purpose that, yes, they want to make Kai Wynn a villain. On purpose, they want to make Bashir more serious. They want to show you that Sisko's vulnerable to the Bajoran stuff. He kind of throws morals out the window. And this is a very moral ethics centered episode, right?
You can't imagine Picard making the same decisions that Sisko's making here.
I agree. That's the one difference I find with Picard and Sisko is Sisko will blur morals to accomplish for the mission and the greater good, and it kind of more logical, more Spockian in that way, kind of like the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Whereas Picard, I think, is kind of the opposite. He's more save the person, and maybe that'll contribute to the greater whole.
Yeah, Picard's more would wrestle with the ethics of this and the philosophy, I think, way more, right? And
which is what we have Bashir. He's the one struggling with the ethics. He's the one thinking about this. That's why we have this scene with Dax, like, hey, cheer up, old chum. Cisco doesn't care at all. There's no self-reflective moment with him. In fact, he's just really listening to Jake kind of go on about how Nog kind of cock-blocked him, and he's like, oh, well, that sucks for you, Jake, but that's really all he deals with on an emotional level in this episode. The rest of it is
like, I can't imagine them doing this with like Kirk or Picard or even Janeway, like it's hard to imagine like, hey, you're not going to resolve this issue between your doctor and your main lead of the show, your captain, right? This doctor who was trying to save the patient, but it ends up becoming, but because Kira is so closely involved, I think Cisco also steps away from it a little bit more, and it's so Bajoran that he's not even there at some of the more important moments.
Yeah, like and a lot of times in these episodes, like he's like a distant character, like he's like kind of like just like it's almost like he's not important.
I feel like this was the period where Avery Brooks was like really thinking about. He's like, I'm not going to keep doing this Star Trek thing. Like, it's the hours are too long. It's too much work. But and like I don't know when he flipped the page and said, no, I'm staying here. I'm here for the long run.
I can tell you when they allowed him to go full Hawk.
Well, that hasn't happened yet.
I know, and I agree with you. I do think you're right that he is looking at other opportunities. He's thinking, maybe do I want to be doing this Star Trek show for 4 more years or whatever the contract was?
Well, at least until season 6, right? Because that's when Terry Farrell's contract ended too, right? So, but he probably could have gotten out of it if he had to.
Yeah, they could have killed him off, brought in a different captain, and like that could have happened.
Promoted Kira, whatever they would have decided to do. Ultimately, I think that would have been a tragic thing, But I think that Avery Brooks here, like I just think in some episodes his heart's not in it. I feel like this is one of them where he's like the way he's written is kind of blah, but the way that his performance in this episode is even more blah.
Yeah, he's asleep even when he is talking to Jake on that emotional level. Like his performance is kind of like it's just not there. Yeah, you're right. Distant. Like just
that's the scene where he's the most like invested, right? That's Avery Brooks cared about that scene with Sirach Lofton, but all the stuff, even the stuff with like Kai Wynn and everything, he's like, I'm just going through the motions a little bit.
I think so, but you see, Alexander Siddig's commitment to this role. Really good, even though I don't really connect with him all that much. You can tell he really cared about this episode and that he really wanted to do a good job. And I think in moments like the scene with Kai Wynn where he calls her a coward, we get the glimpses of what we're going to get in the future with Julian Bashir in some great episodes.
Yep, absolutely. And don't forget about the chocolate souffle with Haligian tongue sauce.
It's called the Kai Wynn.
It's called the Kai Wynn, and it's selling out. This is what they threw to Quark in this episode. Just this one little exchange.
I love it, and I love how he scoops the Haligian tongue sauce and has it on his pinky, and he's like, "Here, lick it off my pinky."
Yeah, you want to lick it off my pinky, Kai Wynn?
And she's like, "You know what? No." And you can't blame her. Maybe the most sensible thing she did in the whole episode.
That tongue sauce must be something.
It must be, but I imagine it's kind of like Pop Rocks. Gives you that,
like Pop Rocks?
I think it's like Pop Rocks. Yeah.
No, I imagine some kind of icing that's just like amazing. Like,
oh no, I had the impression like when he ate it, it was like like a party in his mouth, and he was like kind of like Pop Rocks, but
I wasn't getting Pop Rocks. Or it was made from tongues.
Okay, I didn't want to go there. And maybe I'm guessing Haligian tongues are probably like bug tongues or something. I don't know, like because
I'd have to look up the Halgians or Haligians or whatever they're called.
Yeah. Okay. We get this scene in the party too that we haven't talked about with Kira and Kai Wynn. They don't really give them much in this episode, but Kira kind of goes like, why didn't you listen to Dr. Bashir? Like, you got your peace treaty, but was it worth it? And she goes, child, you don't know. And she kind of goes, ah, right? That's the crux.
Foiled me, Gadget.
Foiled me again. You got me again. She said, I share your pain. It's like, no, you don't. You were like, a second ago, you were like, kill the guy. I don't care. Like, there's more at stake here than his life. It's basically what she said. So she's such a bullshitter, Kai Wynn. Like, it's like, why they even bother to talk to her as if she's not lying to their face, with almost everything she says. I get she's such a great performer and it's just such a good villain, but man, the character, sometimes you're just like, I hate you.
That's the whole point.
That is all, and she does a great job at it.
She's so controlled in the performance, right? Because she comes across as so like that. Oh, who, me? Oh, little me? What do you mean?
Yeah. Oh, me? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Child,
And
I would never.
And as the character is committed to that, like portraying that to everybody. And Louise Fletcher, who portrays Kai Wynn, just so good. She's always was so excellent. And so consistent throughout the whole series.
Yeah, I mean, she's here to the last episode, and there's a reason for that because she's a great performer, and she creates a response in the audience, and they were like, let's lean into the villainy of this character a little bit, and we'll do that with a kind of an ethics episode, and we want to kill Vedic Baral off anyway, and bring in a guy like Shakar. So, I think they were like, we've had it with Baral, so they kind of like, I think that's how this episode got written. And it's good. I like it. It's not my favorite. I would never say I would like, I gotta rewatch that one, but I always skip this episode because I was like, this is a heavy episode and you got to be in the mood for it.
It's kind of like the scene that I think is really the strongest thing at all is when is right after Bareil gets the implants for the first set of implants, and she comes in and he's like, everything's different, I'm not the same anymore.
Yeah. And
she's like, what do you mean? And he's like, when you touch my hand, it's like the distant memory. And you're like, that sounds horrible. That doesn't sound like anything I'd want to experience, right? And so that is what allows you when he finally does die, when Bashir is able to convince Kira, just like, it's over. Like, we can't can't go any further. It went too far as it was. And that spark of life will be gone, and I think without that scene, there's just you wouldn't feel it as much as you do here. And then just as she starts talking to him, I guess, as he's about to die right over the next 3 hours or whatever, I think it's strong. She's really good. Nana
visitor. Yeah, I agree. She is good at it, and she's the crux of, I think, the episode in a lot of ways, because life support is not just about the person that's on life support, but it's about the people that love that person and really want to see them come back to them, but sometimes have to deal with the reality that they may not or should not.
Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
Okay. What else? Okay, so we get that. Yeah. All brain activity will cease within 3 hours, and then we kind of get the final scene here, where Kira says goodbye to Vedic Bareil, and talks about the first time I saw you, I knew I loved you, and all that.
You got your treaty, and I just wish we'd had more time for us. And that's also kind of the thing here, is that he put the treaty, he put Bajor ahead, not just of himself, but also whatever they had with each other, their love for each other, right? And so that's also a choice that he made here, right? Nothing was like, we saw this with Bareil too. Like, he put Bajor, he put duty ahead of everything, right? And you could it's you know, if you're Kira, I don't think you'd feel so great about that, right? I think it's hard, but it's, you know, it's very noble what he does, but it's also
Self-serving a little bit.
selfish in some ways, self-serving. Yeah, like not, it's not considerate to her.
No, yeah, it's inconsiderate. Maybe that's the right word for Vedic Baral here. Yeah, and I think the episode has a lot of great themes and a lot of deep moments that you can really connect with if anybody's had a loved one that's died or was on the life support or kind of had those feelings and those moments. I think that are very well portrayed within this episode.
But I think it messes with you a little bit, right? When you have an active role in saying like your family, a loved one isn't going to continue living anymore, right? Like it's your decision if, you know, like they're on life support, right? Hence the title, right? Like, you know, when you say no, like it's, I don't want them to suffer any longer, or I don't want them to be in pain, or they're not really alive anymore too. I think that, you know, I think that just messes with you. How could it not? Like what mark does this leave on Kira as a character? I think is also worth asking.
Yeah, I think it kind of shows like she's loved and has lost, you know, and I think it just kind of gives her a little bit more of a picture to her love story, I guess, because that's kind of how we learn a lot of stuff about Kira is through her relationships. You know, with men, with Shakar, with Baral, with Odo, you know, so we learn a lot about like how she kind of works in a battery with another actor and in a relationship.
Yep. She's
okay. Yep.
She's Nerys.
Okay, so Nana visitor. Okay, so would you say I kind of have one last question before we get to the fun facts. Dave, whose episode do you consider this?
It's not a Kira episode, actually.
I think it's a Bashir. I think it's a Bashir episode.
I think you would have to assign it to Bashir. Yeah, I think it's you know, it's a guest star episode too in some ways. It's kind of a Jake episode as well. It's as much a Jake episode as it is a Bashir episode.
Yeah, you could pick both those characters like Jake / Bashir, and I think
because they're main cast. Like Nog's not main cast, even though he kind of is. Like it's
right. Okay, so let's get on to the fun facts.
I'll get the graphic up. Sorry.
All right, ready for some double F with Jeff. Okay, the original pitch for this episode by Christian Ford and Roger Sofer was based on the 1818 Mary Shelley novel Frankenstein, with Bashir in the role of Dr. Victor Frankenstein. I guess I am smart. I am so smart. SMRT. The story concerned.
No,
that's the joke.
SMAMA. That's the joke.
That's the joke. The story concerned a Federation ambassador involved in peace negotiations with Romulans whose shuttle is damaged and who dies in the sickbay on Deep Space Nine. However, the treaty negotiations are at a pivotal moment, so Bashir is able to figure out a way to reanimate the ambassador's brain, essentially bringing him back to life. However, over the course of the episode, he begins to go mad, and in the last scene, Bashir is forced to allow him to die once again. The reason this idea was scrapped was because the producers felt that the audience wouldn't have much empathy with a character who they'd only been just introduced to.
Okay, yeah. That's probably true.
But it was cool that I was right about Frankenstein. Okay.
It felt like Frankenstein when he was bringing him back, for sure. I got Frankenstein vibes.
Yeah, no, for sure. I was always thinking, I was like, this is Frankenstein.
I'll get Jane in here. And I was like, Jane, did I not say, who is he, Dr. Frankenstein? I'll get her in here right now if you need me to, Jeff.
I believe you.
All right.
Andre Bormanis consulted with his friend John E. Glasgow, a pathologist at St. Joseph's Hospital in Burbank, to make the medical dialogue as authentic as possible in this episode.
What did you think about his work with the other doctor?
We didn't really mention her. But
this Bajoran doctor he works with sometimes, whose name escapes me. Her name is Jabara, and here's a photo of her here. Oh, we lose Jaemeel?
We might have. Oh no, there was another one though too. That oh no, because she was wearing the red hat stuff. That's why she looked different.
Yeah,
I didn't realize she was blonde.
right. Because she just wears the Starfleet medical scrubs. There's not like Bajoran medical scrubs and
Right.
Starfleet medical scrubs. When it comes to scrubs, they all wear the same scrubs.
Scrubs are scrubs.
But on uniforms, they go different ways.
Yes. Okay, so it says although the producers were happy with both the A story and the B story as individual stories, they were not happy with their combination within this episode.
None of us were.
No, I don't think it worked. It was you can't have like a fun, happy story and then like a really serious, ethical, like.
Well, you could try.
Like it'd be like, I mean, but it'd be like if you had an ER episode and you know in between it's like that one of the doctor's sons is having like a wacky teenage Saved by the Bell type episode. Like it's just weird.
Right.
Okay. Jim Martin designed two major props for this episode: a brain scanner and a brain operator. The scanner was a smaller, lightweight device which would be placed over the head. The operator was a larger device which would enclose the head. It was like this weird, like a helmet thing they put on him at one point. I was like, "What is that?"
I might have a picture of that. Let me see.
Apart from a small opening at the back, however, when Martin, there it is. No, that's the first one. I think that's the brain scanner.
The one he does in the autopsy.
The operator, the big metal one. It looks like a German like World War One.
I don't have a photo. I don't have a photo of that one. No.
They barely show it. They put it on at one point, but okay. So, however, when Martin saw some of the dailies for this episode, he was amazed to see the scanner being used as the operator and vice versa. Director Reza Badil couldn't figure out which was which, so he took a guess. Martin thought this mix-up was hilarious.
Hilarious.
Oh, so
what a
funny.
laugh.
What a laugh. Okay. While shooting her scenes, Louise Fletcher Kywin was extremely ill with the flu and had to lie down between takes. She did look not herself. She did look weird. And that makes sense that she was sick.
She was stressed out from negotiating with Leggett. What's his name?
Yes, I think that actually that helped her in that scene because she does look flustered and like not
out of
well.
Place.
Yeah. Okay. Odo mentions Nog and Jake being involved in a plot to break into a Tholian ambassador's quarters. Tholians are a hot planet species who require temperatures of at least 207 degrees Celsius, 404 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
And Nog, I haven't even seen a Tholian.
I don't even know what it looks
like.
Well, yeah. I like it. So in Star Trek Online, the video game, like the Tholians, they go into encounter suits, which are hot on the inside, but can live in our environment. But they kind of look like big crystalline spiders that live in the lava.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they kind of are like they remind me of the Starship Trooper bug alien things,
right? Except they live in they come from like extremely hot, high pressure environments.
Right. Yeah. Okay. This is the first episode to be aired since Voyager premiered. So I guess they were helping them out here on this episode. They were kind of saying like, we'll throw them one of our best ones right after your premiere. So they kind of get into your show too.
So yeah, Avery Brooks, dial it in this week. We got to let Kate Mulgrew shine.
Kate Mulgrew, this is her time. The episode Shakar is a sequel of sorts to this episode.
How?
I don't know. That's the end of the fun fact. I have no idea what they mean by that.
It's her next boyfriend. Is that what they mean? Is the sequel?
I think so.
Okay.
I guess it's like the bookend. I guess. Major Kira Nana visitor debuts her third hairstyle in this episode. No longer is her hair brushed up and back. It is now combed to the side with a part.
I don't like it.
Her hair is not as
I was noticing. I was like, what's going on with this comb over thing they got going with her here?
Yeah, like I don't know. Yeah, not my favorite. Not my favorite look on her. Okay, this takes place in 2371. The solution to the problem of audience apathy was to make the ambassador a character whom the audience knew and cared about. The producers considered changing the role to O'Brien, who was rumored to want to leave the show to concentrate on film work, but actor Colmini assured them that he had no intentions of leaving. As such, they changed it to Vedic Bareil, mainly because they weren't happy with how the Bareil-Kira relationship was going, and because they weren't sure where the Bareil character was heading.
Right. It might have been Avery Brooks. It might have been Cisco dies in this.
Yeah, could have been Cisco, could have been O'Brien. I guess
you're not going on that date now, Jake. You're going to be dealing with some life support scenarios here. Maybe you're going to be.
If they had killed off Avery Brooks, like if Avery Brooks had left this show,
Right.
does Sirik Lofton hang around for?
I don't know.
You know,
It's even if they killed off O'Brien, like what's the show after that? Like, without him,
they would probably have to bring in another engineer, like maybe LeVar Burton.
It would be a whole new character. Like, it's like, what if Jadzia Dax died at the end of season 6? So wait, she does.
Well, but Dax doesn't. Only Jadzia does.
Yeah.
This episode marks the death of Vedic Bareil Antos. Philip Anglum later plays the mirror universe version of the character in the 6th season episode Resurrection.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
Oh, he comes back. Yeah, not a favorite. Okay, so that's it for this episode. There are not a lot of fun facts on life support.
It's kind of unfun when you talk about a death. I don't know what happened to Jaemeel. He's disappeared.
He was kind of falling asleep.
Yeah,
from what I think. He was
I don't know if we're gonna get will we get a rating?
I don't even maybe text him.
Okay, hold on. I gotta message him now. And go. Are you rating this? Are you coming back, or can we? Oh, he says I have to drop out. Oh, he has a rate. Oh, okay. He's already covered this. I have to drop out. I am drifting. I rate this at a 6.8. Okay, let's rate this, Jeff. This episode, this podcast is on life support right now.
6.8 is also the IMDb rating.
Well, this is consistent. Okay,
that's only 1,420 votes though. Okay.
You want to give it started?
Yeah, I think I'm like a 6.7.
I'm like a 7, probably, or 7.3. Is what 6.8 he said, right? Hold on. 6.8. Okay. So that's a 6.9. Yeah, it's about what do you expect? It's
about right for that episode.
Yeah, it's low for this season. It's one of the lowest we've had so far, but we liked it more than Equilibrium.
It's not a standout episode. I mean, it's more of you got to be in the mood to sit down to watch this one. It's a bit heavy Bashir episode that has it's ER. It's Star Trek's version of ER.
Yeah. So we're officially classifying this. So what was the air date for this? January 31st.
So it took them 2 weeks to come back.
Yeah, because they allowed Voyager to have like their
couple weeks.
That probably wasn't great for their momentum.
Well, that's why I think we have a kind of bad episode here, because not a bad one, but like not a standout. Because I think they were like, let's give Voyager a little bit of runway, and then we'll ramp up at the end of this season, which is exactly what they do.
Right. So we'll have like this. Let's get rid of Bareil. Let's get him off the books. So the next episode, Jeff, is called Heart of Stone, which is another Kira focused episode. Well, actually, it's more of an Odo focused episode, actually, with Kira in it, and maybe a female changeling pretending to be Kira.
Is it maybe a female changeling, or it is?
It is. Spoiler.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the female changeling. It's her second appearance since the beginning of the season.
Right.
And establishing her as a villain. So we get kind of back to back. We get the Kai Wynn, and then we get her.
Yeah, and then not long after, we're gonna get a Weyoun, right? When's Weyoun show up?
Weyoun not till next season.
Oh, is it not till? I thought it might have been at the end of this season.
No, it's not till after Worf shows up.
Oh, okay. Because that is like the three big villains, I would say, by the end of the show. Is the Weyoun, Gul Dukat,
Well, yeah, obviously you got Ducat, and then you got like Damar, who's sort of a villain, but also not, and
Yeah, I would say Damar is more, just a henchman, and then he kind of changes.
yeah, he flips at the end.
Yeah,
Kind of a villain, but not as villainous as the rest.
no, but yeah, it's because it's Ducat, Kai Wynn, and then the female changeling I would say is up there too. Yeah,
He never gets a better name than female changeling or female.
Well,
founder.
yeah, they never name her, and Odo has a name. I think they should have given her a name.
The drop becomes the ocean.
Yeah. Yeah, she's also super condescending. Like that's how they wrote their villains, especially the female ones. It seemed like they are kind of like a child. I know better.
I know. I seen what can happen. Salome Jens is still alive, by the way, too. At 85.
Is she? Well,
yeah,
good for her.
Yeah, so outlived Rene Auberjonois too. And yeah, like she's so good, but yeah, she's like she hates all solids, right? And is unwavering in that commitment to not kill them all, but dominate them. And
she's definitely worse than Kai Wynn. Kai Wynn is more about like she wants power, but she wants to be like loved.
She wants glory.
She wants glory. And it's not she's ruthless, cutthroat, kind of like a Game of Thrones character in a lot of ways, I find Kai Wynn. Mm-hmm. Whereas the founder is more just like more evil, like to her core.
Well, she's more. She wants. What does she want? She wants to dominate. She's afraid of everybody. Mm-hmm. Yes. Therefore, she wants to conquer them and control them so they can't hurt her. That's her whole motivation.
Yes, and Odo finds that out and is like, "This is messed up. Like, I don't want to. I'm not coming back to this link."
No, yeah, and she's the most committed. You get the impression of all the changelings. Like she is number one xenophobic hatred changeling.
Yeah, she's the Hitler of the changelings.
She's the Hitler of the changelings. Yes, she's the one who has to answer for the war crimes after that were committed. Everything bad that Dominion did, she was the one. She had to go to prison for it.
Yeah. Okay, so that'll be fun next week when we talk about that episode, Heart of Stone.
That's what she has.
Kira, that's what she has, and Kira will be surrounded by stone.
She will be. It's gonna be an interesting one to watch. Yeah, like it's because it's such a. I remember not loving that episode. So,
they didn't quite figure out how to do Odo and Kira until season 6.
And the premise of it is searching for a Maquis raider on an unstable moon. Why are Kira and Odo searching for Maquis?
They shouldn't be.
That's not their job.
No, especially Odo.
Especially Kira.
Odo's job is station security.
Yeah.
He doesn't go on away trips.
Yeah, he doesn't go. Bajorans don't go out of their way to arrest Maquis, do they?
I could see them maybe not going out of their way, but if they had a tip doing something,
Yeah, just weird.
Because they're a government, they have the capability or whatever.
They have an agreement with the Federation.
Yeah,
these are criminals to the Federation and to the Cardassians. So especially with their new peace treaty with the Cardassians. Maybe that was part of the deal. Cardassians are like, you're going to help us catch these Maquis now.
That's right. And they were like, okay, well, I mean, what else? Do you need more stuff?
We don't like them. Stuff? We don't like Maquis, so okay.
Will you release any prisoners, Cardassians? No. Well, we'll see. We'll look into it.
Plus, we get this Maquis reference at post the start of Voyager.
Yeah, they do kind of really want to show you more Maquis stuff because most people that are watching Star Trek are kind of going like, "Who are the Maquis? Why is this important?"
Yeah, we've been watching it and we barely kind of know what they're about or care about their cause or.
They don't do a good enough job. We talked about this last week, but they do not do a good enough job with the Maquis and showing us where they actually really live, why their home is
no choice. I think is really the question. Yeah. Why do you have no choice but to do what you're doing, other than pride?
Yeah, because that's but that's only really the Starfleet's point of view. We always see the Maquis from Starfleet's point of view. They're terrorists. They're criminals. They could have left, like you said. Why did they have no choice? They easily could leave, right?
Right.
but the point is they never really show us the story from their perspective and why it's important for them to want to stay.
They give us main characters who are Maquis, and we still, and after a 7-year run watching them, Chakotay and B'Elanna Torres especially, I was no more connected to their cause.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe that's the point. Maybe that is by design. Maybe they don't want you to know who they are. They want you to kind of go, well, these people are stupid. Why don't they just leave? A lot of people kind of say that about like Israel Palestine. Like, why don't the Palestinians just leave? You know, well, because they view that as their home, and they were willing to go through the struggle to protect what they consider their home.
Right.
And it seems like that's the same thing going on with the Maquis.
Okay, if you say so. Yeah,
That's the metaphor I get from it anyway. So we'll be covering that next week on Tuesday Stand at 9. We got to plug anything, Dave? What do you got?
Yeah, we got tomorrow. We'll be doing original series here on Live Long in Podcast, 7 p.m. Eastern. Ted Mader and Adam Woodward and I talking about that. Jody's can't make it this week. We're doing the Enterprise incident, where Kirk takes the Enterprise into the neutral zone and gets surrounded by Romulan Klingon ships, actually. So it's if you want to know more about that, check that out tomorrow night to watch the episode and then listen to us talk about it. Plus, we're going to be doing our next installment of Star Trek Radio Theater pretty soon. I actually haven't worked out the date, but we're going to be doing Voyager's Flashback, which is going to feature, Tuvok and the fact that he was there during Undiscovered Country. Did you know that, Jeff?
I didn't until that episode was made.
Well, now that that was a couple years after this, the one we talked about tonight. So we're going to be doing that on Radio Theater. Plus, we did the one with Steve Shives a few weeks ago, Samaritan Snare. Did an edited version of that that's now up on our audio feed as well as YouTube. The original live version still on Facebook. So check those things out. Plus our other channels, we have Trivial Debates where we argue about movies, TV, sports, and more. At the end of each month, we do an episode. My son, Eamon, just hosted the last one. Jody Simpson slated to host the next one.
Oh, wow. So you can't win.
Can't win, but he'll decide who wins. It's either he wins or he decides who wins. That's how Jody likes to go. And we also have Super Mader Brothers Podcasting, Jeff, which you and I
Yes.
are the namesakes of. And Jaemeel Robinson and I, who I keep up every night talking about it until all hours. Big Brother Canada 9 is finally coming to an end this week. Jaemeel and I we have 2 podcasts left. Tomorrow night, Wednesday, we'll be doing that after the original series, and Thursday for the 2-hour finale and the crowning of the winner. It's exciting. I have 2 of the final 4 going from our little draft. So looking good.
Dave, will we be covering The Circle?
I would love to.
The finale is coming up.
I would love to maybe just do a wrap up of the whole season of The Circle. Yeah, like just a one-off versus try it. Yeah, like it's been running for several weeks. I have been enjoying The Circle a lot and watching it. Season 2. I would love to play The Circle. I think it's like the ultimate reality game for me. Versus like
there's literally no it's all social media and it's all personality based. There's no the competition is there's no physical thing. There's no you gotta run down this way and pick up a ball and run it back like Survivor or Big Brother or anything like that. So yeah, there's definitely some perks to The Circle.
The Circle is interesting. I've been really enjoying it so far. It's coming to an end. Yeah, so like to do that. Also, we did on Super Mader Brothers podcast, and we talked about Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Ashley, Jaemeel, and I on what was that Saturday? We did that.
Is that any good?
We basically the consensus was you can listen to the 3-hour podcast where we broke it all down, or you can. Basically, it was we liked it, but not as much as WandaVision.
Okay. Okay. Anything else?
And we did The Serpent, Jeff, recently.
We did The Serpent. Yeah. So check that out. If you've watched The Serpent and you're interested in listening to Dave and myself talk about The Serpent, we have that for you on Super.
That exists and it's free.
It's free, and you know what? Maybe you will learn something about The Serpent that you didn't know before.
Yep.
Okay. Is that it? Is
it?
that...
That's
Okay, so for all of us here at Live Long and Podcast.